Thank you, Gemma, for the introduction. Thank you so much all for being here. This idea started last semester with Gemma and I, so I'm so happy to see it in fruition and to see plenty of people attending the event and showing up for the speakers and believing in the power of storytelling. Yamma, mummy in Arabic, I screamed. On our way to Jerusalem, I remember my mother yelling at me and pushing my head under the car seat. It was mid-June, and the muggy weather made sweat trickle down my sunburned back like a warm goulash. Staying under the car seat was not something I could bear for long. As I snuck my 7-year-old eyes out for a glance, I caught a glimpse of checkpoints and veiled soldiers with guns. That's when I knew that I should have listened. Growing up, and as my childhood slowly faded into adolescence, the more I asked, the more I learned about the conflict in the region. The more I learned about the conflict in the region, the more I was able to understand the dichotomy that stands behind being born in the Middle East, constantly straddling knowns and unknowns and not knowing oneself, constantly in a fight trying to find your identity. Through my leadership in peacemaking organization, in education, and in translation, I was able to find spaces, safe spaces, for me to understand a narrative around my lost and confused identity. A narrative around being a Palestinian, being a brown man, being a person of color in a conflict that was constantly on fire. Growing up, I searched for keys. I searched for an identity. And those spaces did not provide me with that. Safe spaces, at the time, failed me. Years later, engulfed in the hum of the restless city crowds, on my way to Jerusalem, walking to my bus station, the only thing on my mind is the plates of baklava I'm going to indulge in after I finish my SATs. I was stopped, somehow dead in my tracks, when 8 Israeli soldiers pushed me into a wall. It was the deafening sound of bullets and smell of rubber that got me to understand where I was in this world. I stood up, and they left as they came. They left as they came, leaving me with a better understanding of my identity. I recognize that while safe spaces empower me to push beyond my comfort, there was still a limit to the ways in which I could explore my identity within those spaces. I couldn't exist unapologetically and was constantly asked to subscribe to a narrative that sheds and removes my identity as a marginalized individual. Yet, I was able to find solace in storytelling. I was able to find Palestinians who were able to come and share their stories of trauma and pain, power and resilience. And together with those storytellers, I was able to establish an understanding of what a brave space looks like. In a world that values conformity over individuality, creating a brave space is a revolutionary act where people could come together and leave their flaws at the door. People could come together and exist unapologetically regardless of the color of their skin, or their political identity, or who they are in this world. In a brave space, I don't need to grapple with my existence of acceptance and meaning in this world with a very lost identity. In a brave space, I could exist unapologetically, bringing in people together to exist and be. And they're going to be celebrated and loved regardless of who they are. My call to action today stands behind the power of telling your story, the power behind your identity, and the power in recognizing safe and brave spaces. Spaces that shut the voices of the marginalized versus spaces that allow those voices to be heard, allow those identities to be celebrated. My call to action tonight, I encourage you to come back home and think of the spaces you occupy, the spaces you foster, and the spaces you exist in with your own identity. And think, how can I embrace discomfort to stretch myself and stretch the boundaries of uncomfortability that are bound on us as individuals in this world? And to my friends of color in the audience, remember, your identity is loved. You are celebrated. You are worthy. You are resilient. And you are going to continue doing so. Thank you.